Jey Uso winning the Royal Rumble was a mistake. That is what many WWE fans are saying in the aftermath of one of the most shocking Royal Rumble finishes of all time, where John Cena and Jey Uso were the final two, and where Jey Uso finished off one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, defeating John Cena, throwing him over the top rope, and punching his ticket to the main event of WrestleMania, where he will get the opportunity to challenge a champion of his choosing at the Showcase of the Immortals. And while Jey Uso may not have been the pick that many people had going into it, it was the most shocking thing they could have done. He wasn't even on the short list of outside dark horses to win the Royal Rumble. People thought that Sami Zayn had a chance, and conventional wisdom would tell you it was going to be either Cena, CM Punk, or Roman Reigns, but in fact it was Jey Uso. Yet in the aftermath of his victory, there are many people who are calling this booking decision into question, and they're calling into question the potential this has to ruin a main event match at WrestleMania, because the criticism being levied Jey Uso's way is, despite his nickname, despite the moniker main event Jey Uso, many people believe he just isn't at that level of a main event of WrestleMania. And while I understand why people may believe that on the surface, the fact of the matter is, over the past couple of years, Jey Uso has done so much to establish himself as a character on WWE, and a very important one. Arguably one of the main protagonists of the show, because if you look back at his history with the Bloodline, his history with Roman Reigns dating back to 2020 in the aftermath of his Hell in a Cell showdown with Roman Reigns, that was when the seeds were planted for Jey Uso to have the character that he has today. That was when we saw the first ever look into what Jey Uso was as a character. And we saw over the next couple of years as he developed from someone who was in this abusive relationship with his cousin, who was being bullied, who was being victimized, who was being thrown around, into someone who broke out of his shell and did so because of friendship, and did so with Sami Zayn and his brother at his side, and became not only one of the most over acts in the entire company. He didn't just have people saying yeet as a catchphrase, he genuinely had people behind him. And if we look at the evolution of Jey Uso as a character, Jey Uso as a wrestler, from winning the Intercontinental Championship to helping carry a feud with Roman Reigns leading up to SummerSlam and main eventing that show, Jey Uso definitely has the ability, the acumen, and the fortitude to main event a WrestleMania. The real question about this booking decision doesn't lie at all with Jey Uso, but it does lie with Triple H. Over the past couple of years, one of the biggest criticisms that fans have had with Triple H and his booking is that many times he books for the moment rather than the long-term story. And while many times those moments are intertwined with quote-unquote long-term storytelling, the reality is his form of long-term storytelling is simply just dragging a story out as long as he possibly can, and many times with the dots not necessarily connecting. Look, for example, at how the Bloodline has kind of come back together. Roman Reigns made his return, he confronted Solo Sikoa, yet it seemed like Jey Uso, Jimmy, and Sami just kind of fell into place. Roman never apologized. Roman never went out of his way to prove his worth to the people who he had under his thumb for years, to the people who he abused, to the people who he disrespected for years. Instead, they all just came back to be by Roman's side. Yet, now we are to believe that Roman is going to do the same thing, when Roman has had virtually no character development ever since he returned. He just returned and was a babyface by virtue of having a major return and being against the new Bloodline. And that is just a microcosm of Triple H and his booking decisions. We talk about the Cody Rhodes thing all the time. For the majority of Cody Rhodes' title run, he was not being booked as a great character. He was simply on shows, sometimes being the third fiddle to the Bloodline shenanigans. And it wasn't until he got in this feud with Kevin Owens where Cody Rhodes truly showed exactly what Cody Rhodes the champion was. And the fear with Jey Uso is that he is going to go down that same route as far as Triple H and the way he books main eventers. That he is going to get a big match at Mania, but it is going to lack the story. It's going to lack the connectivity that you would expect from a major program, from a major character like Jey Uso. And if you take away what happened at the end of SummerSlam 2023, the trajectory for Jey Uso was that of a world champion. There were many people who truly believed that Jey was going to walk out of SummerSlam that year as the world champion, yet that never happened, and it just seemed to get out of funk very short after that. And that's when Jey went off and did his own thing without ever really addressing what happened at the end of that pay-per-view ever again. And the question about booking does at the end of the day lie with Triple H. Can Triple H take Jey Uso and this moment that fans are excited for, whether they really like it or they're confused by it? You have a window here to get fans invested in something new. And that is the best part of this. WWE for a very long time was not invested in telling new, meaningful stories. Under Triple H, that window has opened ever so slightly, but certainly. And the fear is that even though this window is open for Jey Uso and he has become one of the biggest surprises as far as a winner of the Royal Rumble ever since Shinsuke Nakamura, that he might go down that same Nakamura lane. Nakamura, when he won in 2018, was genuinely one of the biggest surprises. No one really expected him to eliminate Roman Reigns, and when he won, it was joyous in the arena that night, and everyone believed that they were going to have a big program for him at Mania. And while AJ Styles versus Nakamura at the time was a dream match in WWE, needless to say, the booking and the match itself did not live up to expectations, and Nakamura has never gotten back to that level. The fear is that if Jey Uso and the booking of his character go down a similar track and Triple H and company don't have a plan for him, then he could have the same fate as Nakamura did in his ill-fated WrestleMania main event match. Whether or not that happens is dependent on one man. His name is Triple H. It's his job to book the show. It's his job to get it right. Will he though? Hey, I guess we'll see.